What's going on, everyone? We are back for another off-season edition of the Bleed Los podcast. Our boy Miggy Rowe is back. Winter meetings are on deck. And would Andrew Friedman pull the trigger on a superstar reliever? All that and more coming up next. Welcome back, everyone, and thank you for joining us as we anxiously await roster news. Tonight, we've got Cody, aka Canelo. We've got Anthony in the house, producer Roger behind the scenes, and I'm Drea. Before we get into it all, we want to make sure to tell you about DodgersBeat.com. Stay up to date and in the know with all of the latest and most comprehensive coverage of the LA Dodgers. It is your one-stop for articles, interviews, contests, merch, and more. Never miss a beat, and check out DodgersBeat.com. All right, guys, the front office has been working in assassin level silence and rumors are running rampant. First off, though, how are you? And when do you think we can expect a move? Anthony, start with you.
I'm doing good. Can't complain over here. It's been nice and slow off season, but it got to a point there earlier on in the week where I'm like, damn, we're really taking things pretty slow. And then all of a sudden, it's just like a tidal wave of news dropped on us within the last 24 hours. So I'm kind of happy that the stove is starting to heat up a little bit, but slow and steady always wins the race. But I'm glad we're finally starting to make some moves. I felt like we were going to just have to wait until the winter meetings, but it feels like stuff is starting to trickle out now.
Starting to trickle out. Cody, you were getting some articles out today. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. And, when you look at, across other sports, I always say baseball is better than them in this aspect or that aspect. But when it comes to the offseason, Major League Baseball is probably one of the worst. It's the slowest. Unfortunately, that's the way our sport works. It's kind of been the theme over the last several years, especially, with potential labor negotiations next year. So thankfully, we got one, huge, I guess, signing in Miguel Rojas re-signing with the team, which was kind of a no-brainer. We all predicted that was going to happen, and he'll end his career in Dodger blue, and we'll talk about it a little bit more. But yeah, like Anthony said, I'm hoping we can get some more moves, started soon, whether it's the Dodgers or not. I'm excited to see where some of these guys are going. That way, get more excited for the upcoming season and who's going to challenge the Dodgers.
I am so excited. I've been missing baseball, and I know we still got a long ways to go. But yeah, we definitely have to talk about just the fan base, trying to read the tea leaves. And I mean, Andrew Friedman, he is always so good about keeping all of their plans close to the chest and not letting us kind of know until they're ready to let us know. And that's just hard because I'm not naturally a patient person. But we did get something kind of cool, like you just mentioned, Cody. We had the signing of Miguel Rojas. And I mean, I think the fan base would have lost their collective shit if they had not signed him again. I mean, Anthony, how great is it that he is back?
I'm happy for him. He said to himself multiple times on different podcasts that he kind of was coming to terms with the end of his career. He knew he had 1 year left in him. So I'm happy he's going to have a chance to kind of not Chris Paul it, kind of have an opportunity to finish a farewell tour here and try to do something that hasn't been done in a while, is try to three-peat. I know it's going to be a long road ahead, but I feel like he's going to play a key role for us, whether it's in the regular season or in the playoffs, and even long-term, because they came to an agreement that when he's done playing, that he's going to just slide right into the player development side. So I feel like that was kind of a no-brainer as well, too. That's kind of someone that you want to have around the young guys. I know there's differences of opinions with other players, Jazz Chisholm, for example, but he's the only person that I've heard a negative thing about Miguel Rojas, and I'm kind of leaning towards our guys who will fight to the very, very end for Miguel Rojas, like our Freddie Freeman or a Mookie Betts or even a Shohei. So I'm excited to see what his last year has in store for him, even if it's just he goes out there and kind of just gives it his best, kind of how he's been doing it the past couple of years. But I'm more excited to have him on the player development side once the season ends going forward. That's kind of something I'm looking more forward to.
Yeah, same here. I mean, Cody, that player development, I know he mentioned on several shows and different interviews that that's kind of something that he was looking forward to beyond his MLB career. That's just right up his alley, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you're, Roger can attest to this when we talk to him, off air, but, anybody that covers the team, even my, fair share of times on the East Coast, there's one guy that's always never sitting down, is always working with somebody, whether it's, fielding or doing his own prep work. And that's Miguel Rojas. And I think that kind of speaks the amount of volumes that the respect the team has for him, the players in that clubhouse, the coaching staff. He was kind of like a hybrid player coach this season, helping Mookie Betts become a Gold Glove candidate at shortstop in his first full season at the position. And, you can always, like Anthony said, there's a lot of fans, there's a lot of negativity from, certain players like Jazz Chisholm and that story that broke out earlier in the year. And, even when Rojas was struggling throughout the season, he heard the noise and he spoke about it, on the Chris Rose rotation. And, these players hear that stuff and that criticism, and for him to come out of that dark place and then to provide key moments in the postseason, and arguably, the more and more I watch it, it's arguably probably the biggest hit in Dodger postseason history, especially one of the biggest hits in World Series history. And he'll forever have that moment. You could argue, I made the argument that, he could have retired right then and there, go out as a champion like Clayton Kershaw did, but have even more of an impact on this team. But he's going to give it one farewell tour, one final season, and then he'll transition to a coaching role. And, that's something that seemed like it was always in his future. I always, said he looked like a guy that was either on the manager trajectory or definitely like one of those bench coaches or player development where he'll spend time with the organization, the prospects, all that stuff, and help this team move forward, because we've mentioned that this streak of excellence and winning isn't going to end anytime soon, and he'll have his hands all over that from this upcoming season and beyond. So it's good to have him back. He is a leader in the clubhouse, which goes to show that, it's not always the superstars that are going to be the leaders of the team. It's those guys that, speak up and do the little things each and every day. And Miguel Rojas is definitely one of those guys, someone that I definitely respect and from what I've seen up close.
Yeah, I definitely got that sense from player interviews and different things that I've heard throughout the years regarding Rojas. And even just kind of being in his presence a couple of times, you can really tell that there's something about him that just exudes leadership. But you brought up a good point about, clubhouse. There's like something that you really can't quantify. I know, Anthony, we talked about this briefly on the last episode, but I mean, you could have like a superstar team spend all the money. I know we're going to talk about, the Mets today. We're going to talk about, the Blue Jays. They're spending money too. And you can have this superstar roster. You've got a Juan Soto on the Mets, for instance, but there's something to be said about having the clubhouse culture. And I think that that's just something that, the Dodgers have this incredible roster with like all the best that money can buy, so to speak. But it wouldn't matter at all if you don't have the culture, right, Anthony?
Yeah, to me personally, you can spend all the money in the world, but if you don't have the right guy that kind of leads them, kind of unites the team together, it's for nothing basically. For example, I'll use the Dodgers for themselves as an example. I think that 2013, 2014, those two teams, they spent a lot of money and a lot of players. And if you look back at that roster, there's a ton of ego on those both those rosters, and there's a reason why we didn't end up making it far in the playoffs, because you just kind of didn't have the right guy kind of leading them. But yeah, I just think going forward, even if teams, it's not including the Dodgers, you're going to figure out, they're going to find ways to kind of unite the team. They're not going to simply just follow quote unquote the Dodger model. Sometimes in some instances, a guy like a Vladdy Guerrero kind of takes a leap and he was kind of once that guy like, oh, is he really going to be a leader for this team? He's not going to do this, to do that. And then you saw this year, he was essentially the reason the Blue Jays were even that far into the postseason. But it's not just him alone. There's kind of other guys behind the scenes, like you mentioned Alejandro Kirk, kind of that silent guy, that kind of the team leader that kind of does all the little things here and there, doesn't speak a lot, but he's kind of like a lead by example guy. So I think in all walks of sports, you'll see examples of like, you'll see a very good team and you'll be like, that guy's really the leader of this team. But that's how it is naturally. So there's guys who lead by example and there's guys who are more of a talkative guy. So I think this is just the thing that goes forward with all sports.
I think so. And I think that the Dodgers really have the blueprint, not just in like, the front office, the financial aspect and the other ways that they do player development. But I really think that there is something to be said about just the people that we see behind the scenes, the coaching staff, and what's just like the entire entity and the organization of the Dodgers. And one of the teams in our division, you've got the Colorado Rockies. They're going to be, I think, taking on a member from our staff. I guess Josh Byrnes, and he's the senior vice president of baseball operations, so under Andrew Friedman. And I think, Cody, you had something out, one of your articles. He's going to be taking, I guess, the GM role. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. He's jumping ship to our rival. He actually used to be involved in the Rockies organization a couple of decades ago, so kind of familiar stomping grounds with him. He'll be working with DePodesta, so they're trying to give credit to the Rockies. They're kind of choosing the right guys and the right personnel. Poaching from the Dodgers is always good. With Byrnes in particular, it's kind of a big deal because he has been involved in the scouting and player development role for since 2014, I believe. And how good has the Dodgers scouting and the development of young talent been over the last decade plus? Really good, especially for a team that drafts bottom five pretty much every single year since that. So imagine now stepping into the Rockies role where they're, drafting in the top five annually, and they're trying to rebuild that team from the ground up pretty much. They had a decent, kind of couple hitting core, players that they can highlight, but they also have some bad contracts like the Chris Bryant deal, all that stuff. So it's definitely going to be a transitional phase for them. Obviously, if you're a Rockies fan, you look at the outlook, you see the amount of teams, the Dodgers, the Padres always find a way to win. The Giants are trying to make moves themselves. You kind of got an uphill battle to climb there, but give credit to them. Hopefully, we like competitive baseball, and the Rockies not that long ago, they were a competitive baseball team that gave the Dodgers a little bit of fits back in 2017 and 2018. And they're an exciting team to watch, especially when they get into October, I should say. But yeah, definitely it's going to be something to watch for. Interested to see who gets promoted and takes that role that Byrnes had in the Dodgers organization. Not sure if they'll fill that immediately this offseason right away. But it is a big loss for the Dodgers, in my opinion. So that'll be interesting to see how everything goes moving forward. But I'm sure they'll be fine. The Dodgers have a lot of poaching over the last couple of years, especially with the coaching staff. We saw Clayton McCullough leave, took the manager role for the Marlins. So it's bound to happen when you're a successful team, especially when you win back-to-back World Series. People want to replicate that success, so they're going to start trying to take these guys, and guys within our organization are trying to get promotions.
No, I like it. I mean, I would look at the Rockies as an automatic win sometimes, and I know they probably shouldn't look at it that way, but it's like, okay, we're playing the Rockies this week, thank God. But that doesn't feel good for the guys and for the organization to have everyone think of them like that. So for what it's worth, I really do love competitive baseball, as scary as it isn't in real time. I'm glad for them, and I think that they'll definitely benefit from that. And then, hey, it makes our division that much more competitive. But something that is kind of looming in Mets world, there was a big signing this week. I believe Devin Williams, right, got a 3-year, $15 million deal. And that could definitely have some ripple effects for the Dodgers organization because I think, well, their current big name reliever, superstar Diaz, which we'll definitely talk about, could be on the move based on that. We don't know yet, but I know some people in their fan base are a little bit like, oh, what does this mean for Diaz? But that being said, Anthony, we have some people that we could possibly be targeting if we're trying to kind of read between the lines with Andrew Friedman. I believe Robert Suarez, Fairbanks, and Kenley Jansen are still available, and he is as well. What do you think the direction the Dodgers will take regarding relief based on that?
I think it's going to come down to if they're willing to give one of these guys a 2-year deal. I think a lot of it's kind of come to like, yeah, they want a reliever, but they're not going to go far and beyond like they did last year for Tanner Scott. They kind of feel like he's going to bounce back. I still think he might bounce back this year. Kind of just come into spring training next year and just wash away whatever happened this year. But it's going to come down to essentially, are they comfortable giving either Suarez, Fairbanks, or Jansen a 2-year deal? And not necessarily if the terms is like a club option or a player option in that second year. Maybe I don't know what the mindset is going there, but I was kind of floating the idea out initially to my dad because we were talking about it, and he's like, yeah, they signed Devin Williams to the Mets, and I'm like, yeah, that kind of leaves the door open for Edwin Díaz to kind of go somewhere else, but like I don't think that's an option for us. And then he's like, well, so what are our options? And I'm like, well, I said Robert Suarez, I said Pete Fairbanks, and then I paused, and I'm like, you're not gonna like this name that I throw out there, but he's a realistic option. And he's like, who? And I was like, Kenley Jansen. It's like, oh, and then he started giving me his like, oh, I don't want him, like this and that. So I think there's a lot of people that still think Kenley Jansen, yeah, it ended pretty badly, but he still was very good. He had a really, really good year for the Angels. Yeah, granted, the Angels are very bad, but I wouldn't mind having a reunion with him. And he said it himself before that he wants to come back. He wanted to come back last year, and it just wasn't an option for us. It didn't end up working, so I ended up going to down the road to Anaheim. But I wouldn't mind having Kenley Jansen back on a 1-year deal. 2 years, it's kind of like, I don't know about that, but I think if you're going to have to sign a reliever, I think you're going to have to do a 2-year deal. But ideally, in my world, a 1-year deal.
Yeah, short-term deal, high AAV. I mean, Cody, where do you think this is going to lean? Because I definitely want to talk about Diaz, but I mean, it seems like Anthony said, it might be a little unrealistic depending on, where that goes within the front office. It's a lot of money. What do you think is the realistic option based on those guys left over?
Well, I think if you look at Andrew Freeman's track record, giving a relief pitcher, especially in their 30s or approaching their 30s, a multi-year deal.
Uh-oh.
Anthony. Oh, there we go.
Oh,
Cody is
he's back.
back. All right. Well, you were back, and we heard up to multi-year deal.
Put into him is the home runs. Even though we've seen him, we've seen him up close and personal, and it's kind of weird to say a former Padre, coming to the Dodgers, especially after the tension last year, hitting Shohei Ohtani on purpose and all that stuff. But, it seemed like him and Suarez were fine after that. It was more of a Mike Schilt thing, directing it to happen. And we can see why he's no longer with that organization anymore. And Ohtani not showing him any respect anymore either. So, but, it all comes back to how much Andrew Freeman and the Dodgers are willing to spend. Are they willing to give Edwin Díaz a 5-year contract, maybe plus $100 million? I probably don't lean that way, especially when he has a qualifying offer attached and you would lose a draft pick as well when you sign him. But I don't know. I feel like if Diaz's market is still out there post winter meetings and we're approaching January and he needs to find a team, that's the type of situation where the Dodgers strike and could probably get Diaz in a term that they seek fit. But I imagine he'll go back to New York because I think the Mets, in this case, if there's anyone that can either compete with spending with the Dodgers or outspend them, it would probably be Steve Cohen. So we'll see what happens in the relief pitching market. It's definitely probably the number one priority for the Dodgers. They've kind of made that apparent. Late inning right-handed relief, probably going to the short-term route. but the Dodgers have a lot of internal options as well. You have to make some decisions on these guys. A lot of those guys that were starters in the minors, they need spots in the major league club. This is about the time where you would start transitioning them to a different role if you're going to keep them. Such, arms like River Ryan, Kyle Hertz coming back. We've seen Emmett Sheehan transition the bullpen. Roki Sasaki, I mean, I know a lot of people want him to still be a starting pitcher, but you have him on that cheap rookie deal. You can kind of do whatever you want with him right now. So we'll see what the Dodgers do. There's only enough arms in the rotation, so got to make the most of what you have.
I mean, yes, you have to. I have to admit, I do like Edwin Díaz, and I kind of was being a little delusional thinking maybe, but then I remembered the whole Tanner Scott situation. And we know from year to year, relievers are just, it's so volatile. You have no idea what way they're going to lean season to season. And that is a lot of money. I mean, and it wouldn't even just be the 100 million, or 5-year deal that he is expecting, because you have to also take into account that there would be, like you said, a draft pick that we would lose because of the qualifying offer. But then there is like the 110% tax rate because of the CBT that the Dodgers are just notorious for going over every year. So it wouldn't even be his pay, it'd be his pay plus all these extras tacked on. That is a lot. But it is fun to think about because I really do think he is the best on the
Yeah, I mean, it's basically saying, would the Dodgers be comfortable paying Tanner Scott and Edwin Diaz over $60 million for the year with taxes, the fees, all that stuff added in there? Because Tanner Scott's basically getting paid 110% on his salary. Edwin Diaz would get paid 110% on his salary as well. So that's a hefty price. It would make the Dodgers bullpen that much better. I think it would put Tanner Scott into a role where he's more familiar with and has excelled at better. When he's the closer and straight up closer, it just hasn't really been the same as him being the high leverage, Swiss Army knife guy that can go in the 6th, 7th, or 8th inning, where Diaz is strictly, that's your 9th inning guy. Dodgers haven't really had that since 2021 with Kenley Jansen. And I do put some merit in having a guy who's definitely the closer. I know the Dodgers haven't done that the past couple of years that a lot of fans, including us, have kind of asked them to do.
Still fun to think about. I really think that there's a big splash coming. I mean, at least I'm being, somewhat hopeful for that. And maybe it's going to be Diaz. And I wouldn't be sorry. I mean, maybe Shohei could just kind of get them a few more sponsorships and, make millions more for them. And it wouldn't be a big deal. But yeah, I think we need to kind of switch gears into the outfield for a second, because obviously that's another need. And it looks as though the Dodgers are going to be kind of going more towards the trade route from what we're hearing versus the free agency market, tied to people like Jarren Duran, Stephen Kwan, Lars Nootbaar, Brendan Donovan, and Byron Buxton. Of course, we've talked about him before. So Anthony, above those people, do you see any of them kind of like, oh yeah, now that I really kind of look at where the market's going, which are you leaning towards to be kind of like, hey, this is like a fit for Dodger Blue?
See, for me, I think the trade is more than likely the route we're going to end up going. I was actually I think it's going to happen, but it's not going to happen until the winter meetings. And I think it's going to be, if I had to pick from that list, I think it's going to be Donovan. I have a feeling his name has just been floating around throughout various articles from different reporters that you see. So I feel like there's smoke, there's fire kind of deal. So I think it's just kind of waiting to see. And with trades, it's also, you just never know. Especially floating around Teoscar's name. I think that was kind of just more to see, like, okay, let's see if someone's interested or not. I still think it's going to be kind of hard because of that 3rd year he has on that deal. And then he has an option for a 4th one, although it is a team option. But I don't know. If you trade him now, you kind of leave yourself with a bigger hole in the outfield. And it just becomes Andy Pajes and Ryan Ward and friends basically out there in the outfield. So I know I've said that I would consider it, but now looking at what we have in our outfield depth, I think I would take Teoscar's name off the waiver, or not the waiver wire. I'm thinking of fantasy football here, off the block. Just because I feel like he still provides a lot for us, especially in October. This run, if you go back at it, I was looking at highlights. He provided a lot of big moments for us against Philadelphia, a lot of big moments for us against other teams as well too. I know the defenses was kind of like, that's the iffy part, like having him out there, and you can't really DH him because you got Shohei. So he's going to have to figure something out, even if that means moving him back to left field. But I think Donovan is the guy that's kind of been like, you're circling around him. I think that's the guy they're going to end up trading for And I think they might have done it last year, but during the trade deadline. But I don't know if like they were too far along with Steven Kwan and ended up just falling through at the very last minute. They're like, okay, we had to pick and choose like now at the end of the season, which one of these two I'd rather have Brendan Donovan.
Not too shabby of a pick if it was to go that way. I mean, he's got what, a 287 batting average, had 10 home runs this past season, 50 RBIs. I mean, he's a good player. But I kind of want to just travel down what you said a little bit about Teo, because I mean, a year ago, everyone was blindly in love with Teo. We all wanted to have his babies. And now a year later, after, kind of some of those debacles out in the outfield where he kind of, almost cost us, I guess you could say, in some cases. At least the fan base was, not too happy with him at certain points. I feel like now we're in I think Cody left again. Anthony, he'll be back. But I think now we're more like in a situationship with Teo. And I think the fan base sometimes says, okay, let's get rid of him. Grass is greener on the other side. Are we too fickle and spoiled as a fan base to just kind of say, off with Teo when he has really provided so many good times for us, if you look at the big picture?
Yeah, it feels like that. I think it's just it was a glaring issue last year when it came to like his errors in the outfield, and sometimes it felt like it was a lack of effort. Sometimes it felt like he gave up too easily on plays, whether it was a fly ball or like a hot shot right down in between the gap between both him and Andy Pajes. But yeah, I think it's kind of more of a wait and see. I mean, if you look back at it, he ended up helping us win a World Series, and that's essentially why we re-signed him, to try to see if we can repeat as champions, and it worked. I mean, for the most part, it worked. But I don't know. I think it is a lot of fickle. Like, he could come out next year at the start of the year and like hit like 10 home runs off the gate, and people will be back on the tail bandwagon. And then if he makes like, God forbid, like 2 mistakes in one game, and like he ends up, that's the reason we end up losing it, you'll see people hop back off. So it's kind of like, you're playing with fire basically. It's like one day, like, yeah, we'll be on with you, like you hit 2 home runs, we won this game, and like the next day you make a throwing error, like, no, we want this guy shipped off to, I don't know, some random team here. So it's kind of just the nature of the way it is. But we know that he's provided a lot for us, and essentially we're just trying to get him to October, because we know he's going to come through for us in October.
He will. I love Teo. I know he had moments, but every player has moments, unless you're Michael Conforto, and every night is your moment not to get it done. But yeah, Cody, you're back. Welcome back. But we were just talking a little bit about Teo and the fickleness of our fan base. Sometimes when we love him, we hate him. I mean, what else is new? We're just kind of spoiled, and we always want to win every single game. But as far as like the trades go in regards to, maybe gaining an outfielder, who do you think would actually be that's, with us now that we could probably safely say, or likely to say goodbye to? They should start, looking for homes, calling their realtor, checking out schools in other cities. Who might go? Who do you think is going to come and join us?
Yeah, I think the Dodgers have a pretty good pool to choose from in the trade market. I think Steven Kwan last trade deadline was their top target, which is why they, pretty much down to the final hour, they were trying to get that deal done. I don't like Steven Kwan and his profile personally. I've kind of argued that on social media and in my writing. I just feel like the asking price from the Cleveland Guardians is probably just too much than what I'm feeling comfortable with, especially giving up, especially, in a team that, they need hitters. The Guardians are probably asking above and beyond. So that's kind of not where I'm going to go there. I like both of the Boston Red Sox outfielders that are on the trade block, whether it's Jarren Duran or Willie Abreu. I think those guys are more available along with Brendan Donovan, because it seems like those teams, the Cardinals and the Red Sox, are more inclined to trade those guys, where, you're going to have to pry away Steven Kwan. You're talking about a team that just made the postseason, had a really good run, won their division after defeating all odds and coming back from their deficit that they had all summer. So I feel like one of those guys would probably make the most sense. At the end of the day, I'm not sure if they get any of them. I feel like the Dodgers are going to be smart in this. They see what's coming up in the pipeline right now. A lot of, scouts. I was watching Baseball America's, podcast today, and they were talking about the Dodgers farm system. Guys like Mike Sirota, DePaula, and Hope, they all have high ceilings. Sirota's actually inching to becoming the new number one Dodgers prospect. But I believe, it's an interesting pool to look at. And the Dodgers, they eventually are going to let some of these kids play because they do have to get younger. And that's something I wrote about before. You can't just keep trading and signing guys that are in their late 20s, early 30s and to long-term deals, because that's where you get an aging roster and that's where you start losing games. So it'll be interesting to see what the Dodgers do in that regards. With the Teoscar rumors, though, it is interesting, and Ken Rosenthal did put it out, said that he heard conversations, but he even said, in his column and on Fair Territory today, that it kind of isn't a deal that's likely to happen. And it doesn't really make sense to me, just because I feel like if you're looking for an outfielder, you wouldn't trade an outfielder away, even though he had a down season to his standards, or if what we saw. He's still above average hitter. If you move him to left field, you can hopefully hide his defense there like they did so well in 2024. But, he is profiling more as a DH. He has a right-handed power bat, and there's not many of those on the free agent market. So he could be, a lot of teams would probably be interested in adding him on. His contract really isn't the worst. $14.5 million next year, $14.5 million in 27, and then $16 million in deferments after that. And, his team option does have a $6.5 million buyout if they decline it. So, he's entering his mid to late 30s. So that team, depending on how he does the next 2 years, that could, whether he's with the Dodgers or not, that's pretty much a bargain at that rate. It'll be interesting. I imagine he's still on the Dodgers come opening day 2026 instead of right field. I do think he will be in left field. They got a lot of internal options to use. I'm interested to see what Ryan Ward does, if he gets a shot or if he's traded. Tommy Edman, how's his ankle feeling? Can he play center field regularly? And then Andy Pages, besides what he did in the postseason, he had a really good 2025 season, and I feel like the sky's the limit for this guy, and he looked really good in defense. He could play right field, center field, anywhere out there, and I feel like you're going to get above average defense now. Now you're just hoping that you can continue cutting down the strikeouts, have
Uh-oh.
Cody is in and out today. He'll be dropping back in. But yeah, Anthony kind of put a bow on the things that Cody was. Oh, you are back, Cody. You are right back. So you want to kind of finish your thought up?
That's kind of where I stand on everything. We'll see what happens with the outfield market, but it will be interesting to watch in the winter meetings.
It's that cold weather over there, right? It's making everything all loopy over on your coast. Yeah, definitely kind of want to bring up a point of that you kind of made, because I think, Anthony, we've also talked about this several times, and you've mentioned that the team has to get younger at a certain point. So maybe the actual best move is what Cody just said, right? That, we should look at internal options and look at how we can best utilize what we already have to get younger. Yes.
Yeah. What I would hate for this team to become is kind of like what it always comes to my head, that late 2000s Phillies team where they kind of just all aged together and like they just couldn't get young. And then for a while there, like every single Philly player that was like played a big part in that championship ended up being a Dodger in like the mid 2000s, which is kind of weird if you look at it. Like Victorino was a Dodger, Jimmy Rollins was a Dodger, Chase Utley actually was a very decent Dodger. Even Carlos Ruiz was a Dodger. So I would hate if we're like looking at it in 2 years from now and we just didn't bring up any young talent. But I think it's also, I think they are going to bring up some of this young talent. I think there's a reason why they haven't traded away, because they feel like they're very high on these guys and they kind of see the writing on the wall. Like we can't always rely on a guy like Freddie Freeman. I think he's got 2 years left, and I'm looking at it like, yeah, he's got 2 years left, and that's it. He said it himself that this is more than likely going to be his last major league contract. And we got guys like Max Muncy. I know we'll get to him later, who's open to an extension, but how long are you willing to give him? He's kind of not to his own fault either. He's kind of dealt with a lot of injuries throughout his past, whether it's the elbow, the kind of freakish knee injury where we thought he was going to be done for the year, and he was able to come back and kind of help us prove it. I'm always just looking to get younger. Yeah, it comes at its expense because sometimes those young players aren't ready to win, and it's kind of a hard thing because there's kind of like growing pains. But if you surround them enough with around the right talent, and I feel like we have that right veteran group, they can learn fastly and kind of look at them like, whoa, Freddie Freeman's like I forget what year he's in, and he's doing all this to get ready. Like, you kind of have to introduce your young talent to winners. you can't expect them to be winners right out the gate if they don't know what to do. So this is kind of the perfect opportunity to kind of phase them in, basically. Like, we're gonna phase you in. Yeah, you're not gonna get a lot of playing time right now, but there'll be a time and place where you will win a spot and you're gonna get that playing time.
Yeah, and they're going to be learning from the best as they're getting, gradual playing time. But yeah, you brought up Max Muncy. Let's definitely talk about him because I think he was on foul territory. I want to say it was yesterday, and just talking a little. Obviously, he got picked up, and he's interested in extension, like you just said, Anthony. But he did mention, I think, also something. And Cody, you were not filming with Anthony and I last week on the show that we talked about Tatsuya Imai's comments regarding taking down the Dodgers. And Max Muncy actually addressed that on foul territory. And if you heard that, but Max Muncy said that it's no different than every other pitcher in the entire league, that they are all trying to take them down. And that made me think of the entire season. Like every team came at us with 110%. Can we expect that now even more, Cody, now that we are back-to-back champions?
Yeah, I think it's not just a thing that's going to be year to year. I think that's kind of the Dodgers' identity right now. I mean, we're very similar to what the Yankees were for much of my life, where after they went on that torrid run in the early 2000s, and then they still stayed in contention, made it to the ALCS multiple years, but they weren't able to get back to the World Series and win it until 2009. But once you got that 27th ring, their fans, continued to be, torment a lot of teams around the league. And I think we're starting to see a little bit of a changing of the guard, and you can see it on social media. You can see it on, when people are talking about the Dodgers and baseball, and particularly they talk about Los Angeles over New York now. And it's because of, the recent success we're on, 3 championships in 6 seasons. They've won the division, 12 of the 13 years, they've made the playoffs all these years in a row. Max Muncy's right. Every year, I've seen it here because I don't go to home games often. I've only been to LA like twice. So when I go on the road, whether it's Baltimore, Philadelphia, New York, Washington, the Dodgers faithful does give a good crowd there and an away presence, but a lot of the home fans there, those games are sold out, and they're sold out for a particular reason. You got star power, but you also got the ability of saying, you know what, the Dodgers are in town. Wouldn't it be awesome, for our team to play up to their best? And a lot of these other teams, even if they're below 500, they're going to play up to the best of their ability to beat the Dodgers, because it's a great challenge for them. And then for teams that are in contention, like the Phillies, we saw how that division series, played out in Philadelphia. Those 2 games at Citizens Bank Park were as intense as it can get. And good baseball can be played, and you're going to see the best of players coming out, and I think that's good for baseball, and I think that's good for the sport. I think that's the underlying thing that Dave Roberts has alluded to, is that what the Dodgers are doing, don't hate them for the team that they're putting together or the success that they're on, which is, it sounds crazy to say, but they are saving the sport right now. Viewership is up. People are interested. People are talking about baseball now on a national landscape, and Ohtani can be thanks for that. But I think the Dodgers winning, it kind of triumphs everything right now, and it's transcending the game itself.
I think so. And I think that, as far as saving the game, and I know people want to blame the Dodgers, but the truth of the matter is the Dodgers are a huge part about why it is so popular, like you're saying. And kind of just reminded me of something that kind of came out in the last day or so. I don't know if you saw this, Anthony, but Dave Roberts was on an Amazon Prime show called Good Sports, straight up asked about, the potential thing that we're going to be talking about in the next year, which is, the players versus the owners. Are we going to have a lockout? Who knows where we're going with that? And he was actually in support of having a salary cap. At least he's come out and said, hey, he would do it. But his exact quote was, if you're going to suppress spending at the top, you got to raise the floor and make those bottom feeders spend money too, end quote. He's not mincing words. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think a lot of people think the problem is the Dodgers and just the overspending and the deferrals of contracts and stuff like that. But there's a lot of teams that, and I look at the Pirates specifically just because I'm a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, so I watch a lot of Pirates games. I also love Paul Skeens, so I throw on every time he is on the mound, I throw on his game. But that's such a rabid fan base that's kind of willing and ready to like explode, and their owner is doing absolutely nothing to kind of like provide a winning product. I think the last guy they signed to a big deal was I forget his name. He was like I was off the top of my tongue, but it's been a while since they signed someone of any caliber to a very long, lucrative contract. And there's a team that had Andrew McCutchen, MVP, on that team for a while. They've made the playoffs, and you'll see it like in old highlights because I like to watch old highlights and stuff. The fans show out; they show out heavy for them, and the owner just provides absolutely nothing for them. It's kind of been the story for a lot of major league teams. I'm not just wanting to single out the Pirates; it's a lot of major league teams as well. And what do we say all the time in October? As long as you get a chance to play in it, anything can happen. I mean, the Diamondbacks made the World Series not that long ago. The Rangers were World Series champions. I mean, so it's possible. Yeah, the best teams sometimes always make it, but there's been plenty of years where I thought the Dodgers were the best team and we're out in the NLDS or we're out in the NLCS, and someone else goes on to win the World Series. I mean, the Washington Nationals knocked us out in 2019, ended up making that Cinderella run and ended up winning the whole thing. So, I mean, as long as you make the playoffs and you give yourself an opportunity to win, anything can happen. But a lot of these teams kind of go into spring training or even the offseason and are like, do we really want to make a move? Nah, let's just roll out whatever talent they got in their minor league system. And a lot of it does have to do with like the way the Dodgers kind of draft and develop guys. Not a lot of teams do it the way we do it. We probably have the major league model of like how to you draft a guy, you develop them, and you bring them up, and then you sign him to a long contract. Will Smith, the first player that comes to mind. If it wasn't for Yoshinobu having like an insane World Series performance, I think we're talking about Will Smith being World Series MVP.
So yeah, on the flip side of that, you have a team that is spending all kinds of money, throwing out, all of Canada's finances just to take down Miguel Rojas. I even think that the Blue Jays team this week was tied to Kyle Tucker, and they're really going all in to try to kind of make themselves the most competitive they can be this coming season, right, Cody?
Yeah, I think, you look at the Blue Jays, they're kind of doing everything right. They're interested in Kyle Tucker. He went down to Florida to visit their spring training complex today. Bo Bichette still is in the realm of possibility of resigning there as well. And then they just signed Dylan Cease. So if you have an off season with those three coming to north of the border, you got a really good team, and the team doing the things that, every other owner should at least attempt to be doing. And the Blue Jays, they're one of the richest teams in baseball. They got a whole telecommunications network that owns the team, and you got all the playoff sharing revenue money that's, going to them because they were just 2 outs away from winning the World Series. So they're finally doing the right thing. They're investing that money into their product and trying to put a better team on the field. And right now they're the American League favorite. And, who knows? Maybe we'll see a 2026 World Series rematch between the two.
I mean, how great would that be for baseball? I mean, that was one of the best, if not the best, World Series that was ever documented by so many people who have been following the sport for so long. But one of the reasons it was so incredible was Yamamoto. He has been kind of up in the news lately. People have been kind of following him around. I mean, Anthony, he was at the Laker game this week. Just the king of LA right now for all of the things that he has done recently. But yeah, he was one that the Dodgers went all in on, 325 million, and he has proven to be worth every penny. But I don't know, Anthony, did you see this week that he was actually, well, we got a little background footage of when he was practicing his English for the rally, the day of the parade. Did you see that? I mean, how great is Yamamoto and how like committed he is to LA? Isn't that just wonderful to see?
It's very cool, and also the video of him like discussing his opt out with his agent. It's actually like it's like inside stuff. You don't really get to see that kind of deal. Like I know a lot of us kind of like, oh, we should just throw him this kind of years for all this money, but like there's a lot of stuff that goes into it before that. Like there's a lot of terms and contracts that we're never gonna know what's exactly in Yoshi's contract. It's just an interesting like dynamic to see. Like he was stressing so hard over like this little opt out thing. For us, it's not big of a big deal, but for him, he's making a decision that's going to affect him essentially the rest of his major league career. Is that opt out and stuff like that. Thankfully, it's not till the future, so we can push that forward. But it's always interesting to see stuff like that, and him practicing his English. It's kind of like it's cool to see like him a little bit of his more personality. It's kind of hard to see it. He kind of keeps himself a little bit close to the vest, but I think a lot of the guys in the dugout or in the clubhouse kind of see like the real Yoshi, and like we're starting to see a little bit of it here and there. He's willing to share a little bit more here and there. and not to be too shy. I think that's kind of he sees like what Shohei's kind of done. He's kind of provided more of his personality, and now Yoshi's kind of like, well, I'm a funny guy too. Like I have this personality as well too. I've just kind of been focused on the whole baseball side of the things now, and now he's a two-time World Series champion, so he's allows him to kind of open up to him, to the audience as well.
Do you think he's going to take us down, Anthony, in the WBC?
Man, I'm excited for WBC. Yeah, Team Japan will always be for me the team that kind of scares me. I saw it firsthand last year, but I don't know. I'm confident in Team USA and Team Mexico, but I wouldn't lie to you. If I saw Yoshi out there in a deciding game, I'd be like, oh boy, it's going to be a long night.
Yeah, we would be on the receiving end of that. I think the preliminary schedules had to, our team rosters had to kind of be submitted, right, Cody? And if I'm not mistaken, I think Pajes now is going to be joining Team Cuba. Do we think any other Dodgers are going to be expected to join?
Yeah, I think, they're still trying to fill out their rosters and kind of get an idea of what players are going to go. I imagine Freddie Freeman's going to go play for Team Canada like he has been. Not like they usually make it far in the tournament anyway. Sorry. And then you got your, Team Mexico, they don't really have many options, I would say, that would probably go there. They had Austin Barnes go there, Julio Urias before, his whole thing. He was kind of like the main guy that from the Dodgers that would go play for Team Mexico. And then you got the United States, which they could have Will Smith. He could be the backup catcher to Cal Riley. You got Mookie Betts, who could probably play second base at least, like he did during the 2023 tournament. Even though he was a really good shortstop this year, I think Bobby Witt is taking over at shortstop there. Who knows if Trey Turner comes back? I know he was a former Dodger. He was really good in 2023 during that tournament. We'll see what he does there. But for other Dodgers pitchers, I mean, I imagine the Japanese, trio, like we already got Ohtani. He's going to be participating. I imagine he'll pitch at least once or twice. Yamamoto, Sasaki, I imagine it's kind of leaning more that they're going to participate in the tournament one way or the other. So those are kind of the guys you have circled right there. Other than that, it's going to be interesting to see what other teams and players throughout the league start to fill out the rosters. And you got Venezuela. I know Miguel Rojas wanted to play for Team Venezuela as well. Teoscar Hernández mentioned, I believe, at the beginning of the season, or this past season, that he wanted to play for the DR. I imagine if everything health wise is good for him and he's in a good place, he may give it a shot. And then other than that, they got a lot of players. Obviously, I also am selfish. I want them to focus on spring training coming ahead and see what roster battles we have. But with so many young prospects in the Dodgers pipeline, kind of gives them a little bit of a time to shine too. And I would definitely not complain if I got to see Sirota, DePaula, and Hope all get some playing time this spring training with those guys in the WBC camp.
Oh my gosh, it's going to be one of the most exciting things to look forward to as we transition into 2026. But yeah, I know we talked at the top of the show, kind of like it's a little bit slow of an off season, but in a way, it kind of gives us a chance to breathe and reset, kind of get into some hobbies or shows or things that we probably haven't been getting into. I know, Anthony, you've been doing concerts and little things around LA, but have you guys been able to kind of catch up on your own lives outside of just Dodger baseball? Cody, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I'm trying to write at least once or twice every day. There's always stuff to write about. It does get hard a little bit, but with the winter meetings coming up, that keeps me busy. But definitely trying to catch up on some TV. But I never really watch new shows. I always just rewatch shows that I watched before. Really into the Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul territory right now. So I'm on that kick. We'll see how far that takes me. Maybe I'll rewatch The Office again. Got to enjoy the winter somehow, and then catching up on all the baseball news.
Yeah, Anthony. So let's kind of stick with that for a second. Do you have shows and things you're catching up on?
I finally decided to cave in, and I started watching the Harry Potter movies. I think everyone in my family's watched it. I have a lot of friends who watched it. And the only reason I started was because when I went to Halloween Horror Nights, they have a Harry Potter world, kind of like the Wizarding World of Harry Potter. And I walked right through it, and I could tell you absolutely zero things. I was looking at stuff. I'm like, I don't get the reference here. And I would see people in line for a ride, and they're freaking out because they're getting the reference, and I'm like, this is just like I have no attachment to it. I have no feeling for it. Like, yeah, it was a cool ride, but I don't know what's going on. So I'm like, finally, I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna do it. I'm gonna watch it. So I'm like halfway through the second one. It's like a lot of movies, like 6, 7 of them. So I'm like halfway through the second one. But I don't please don't expect me to read the books. I'm not a guy who reads the books. I read articles. That's about it. Do not give me like a 600-page book saying like, oh, you enjoy the book more than the movie. No. I'm gonna watch the movie. But other than that, I've kind of like started like resetting for next year. Actually, kind of like just like, okay, the year's essentially over. Like, what do I want to achieve next year? Any goals in mind? Stuff like that. More say like, where do I want to travel to next year? So I'm starting to like put some things into play. Like, okay, like in an ideal world, I would love to travel here and here and here. So that's kind of where I am mentally. Kind of just like throwing on anything on Netflix. On Netflix, I think I'm gonna start Breaking Bad. I've never watched Breaking Bad. I want to give it like a legitimate like shot. Like, okay, like you have my attention for however long I need to. So I think that's what I'm gonna watch on Netflix is Breaking Bad.
Yeah, if I tell you guys what I watch, you'd be like, yeah, Dre, no. It's very like romantic comedies and things that probably guys don't care anything about. But yeah, as far as next season, um, Anthony, we got to meet last season at Dodger Stadium, so that was kind of fun. But I think we're going to have to take up a GoFundMe, have producer Roger set one up. So Cody, you can get out here, and we can all be in the stadium at the same time in 2026.
I am trying.
Sure.
It's convincing the wife to make a trip up there either this year or next year. So to be TBD.
Let's pick a good one. Let's kind of make that happen because I really think all of us in the same location at the same time would be pretty awesome. But very much looking forward to next season. I can't wait to see the gold jerseys, what they're going to look like, and the ring ceremony. So many good things and what the promotions are going to be. So lots to look forward to as we transition into 2026. But something really cool that producer Roger let us know about today was MLB Network. There's going to be a special on Game 7. And we all know how incredible Game 7 was. I mean, really the whole series, the whole World Series was amazing. But on December 11th, 7 p.m. Eastern time, I believe it's I want to say it's Bob Costas and Verducci, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
are going to kind of do a deeper dive into kind of like that Game 7 and the intricacies, camera angles, and their analysis to kind of really give us just another, perspective and really cool to relive some of those memories. I don't know how many times you guys have watched clips and footage of Game 7. I mean, I almost have to like kind of remind myself that this happens sometimes because it just seems so wild that all of those things converge to make us win a World Series. But how excited are you guys for this?
I'm excited. I really don't rewatch games entirety. I'm more of a clip guy. Like if there's a YouTube compilation, and there's plenty of them of just the entirety of the whole Blue Jay Dodger series. That's probably more what I'll watch. I don't think I'll sit through I already sat through it once. I don't want to sit through another 4-inning or 4-hour long game, even though I think it will bring in great insightful stuff. But I'm more of a clip guy. I don't think, I think the only time I've ever rewatched games was actually during like the height of COVID. There was just absolutely nothing to do. And like a lot of YouTube places or streaming services kind of uploaded full length games. And I'm like, okay, I remember I went back and I rewatched this is basketball. I rewatched the 2010 Game 7 Boston versus the Lakers, and it's like actually kind of weird to see a game from like 2010 and like you compare it to where it is now, and they're like, wow, this is like such a different like game. And I did it with baseball too. I think I rewatched the entirety of Kershaw's no hitter, and I was like, wow, this game is like very like slow paced. So you're used to the pitch clock basically, and like
True.
you see guys kind of like taking their time in the box, the pitcher kind of taking their time to kind of get set and all that. And before you realize it's been like a minute or two between pitches, and you're like, damn, like I'm so not conditioned to sit here in between like dead stretches of the game. But I don't know. I'm not really a big rewatching guy. I tend to kind of just be more of a clip guy.
So you're not rewatching the 6-hour Game 3, 18 inning game?
No,
Okay.
I am not.
Yeah.
No, I suffered through that game once. I will not suffer through it again.
Yeah, Cody, it was like, I'm going to bed. You guys are doing the show on your own at midnight. That's not going to be me. It was 3 a.m. where you were. I don't even know.
I had one eye closed, one eye open during that World Series. I went to the bar that night. So I was originally not supposed to do the show with you guys. I went to the bar, had a few drinks, got home, sobered up, and the game was still going on. I was honestly at the borderline of like miserable, but also like, all right, can they win the game? It's kind of like being relieved of like torture once Freeman hit the home run. But yeah, I mean, regarding the documentary coming out, I just finished the Backstage Dodgers season. Someone uploaded them all on YouTube, so I watched from spring training all
Yeah.
the way to the World Series one that they just released. And then also, clips. I never really watch full games, but every once in a while, especially game 7, I'll at least start like halfway and then just finish the rest of the game out. Just because of how that game ended. I started when Ernie Clement slid into home to score that run, and they were all happy. Everybody was going crazy there, and to see like the trickle effect, Muncie's homer, everything getting silenced there, and then obviously Rojas, Will Smith. It brings me a lot of pleasure to see that. And then, I think Major League Baseball has done a really good job of releasing a lot of footage behind the scenes over the last couple weeks. So we're getting some, hearing some clips from the Dodgers dugout and what they were saying in there, all that. So it's always interesting to see a different angle.
It is, and with the Clement showboating, sliding in, and then you see the footage of Bo Bichette when he had the 3-run home run, and him, tossing his bat in dominance, and just to see it kind of progress to the end and how it all ended up in our favor. I could relive that forever. But yeah, that is kind of the close of my notes. So, Anthony, what are your final thoughts as we wrap up the show?
Final thoughts. The stove is starting to heat up, but I feel like we're in for a little bit of a longer winter. Hopefully, we have some more news as the days go on. But yeah, I'm kind of just waiting like everyone else.
Yeah, so heating up. Cody, final thoughts.
Yeah, obviously the winter meetings are coming up. I'm sure we'll have an episode or two the following week. I believe they start on Wednesday, so we'll definitely hear some news and rumors. All that stuff's going to be up here on the channel, definitely on DodgersBeat.com, social media. I'll definitely have a lot of stuff covered. We're getting a lot of stuff from the beat reporters, rumors, trades, trade targets, free agency. So definitely going to be an interesting couple days. Hopefully, fingers crossed, we get some Dodger moves to talk about because, I love Miguel Rojas, but it was kind of predictable that move was going to happen. I want to see some juicier stuff happen and for us to discuss here on the channel.
I will take juicy. Yeah, that puts us at 38 roster. Is that right?
Yeah, so 40-man roster, 38 with Rojas returning. So I think they still have those 2 extra spots. You could see them swing a trade and create more space. We'll see what happens over the next several days. But I do think my bold prediction is they will make a big move next week.
And if they do, we will be here to talk about it and get set up to make sure that we get the lowdown on all of that. But yeah, Cody, tell us where we can find your articles.
Yep, DodgersBeat.com. You can check out my Substack as well. Everything's linked together there. If you want more, personable touch, and then social media, definitely always on X, looking to have a conversation, talk about Dodger baseball.
Definitely do that. Yes. And don't forget to like and subscribe, hit the bell notification. We really do appreciate all of the support. Check out DodgersBeat.com. Check out our YouTube channel on the Bleedless Network for all the latest footage. And of course, a big shout out to producer Roger, who goes above and beyond to make sure that we get all of that great stuff. But yeah, definitely check out our handles as well. You can find Anthony on X and Instagram at Anthony Acosta _. You can find Cody on X at SnavelyCody6. And you can find me, Drea, on X and Instagram at Ravine Queen 1958. And until there's the next big news, let's go Dodgers.